If you're ready to level up your skills with PenStack, this video is for you. In this tutorial, you will build a full employee management system from scratch using PostgreSQL, React, Node.js, Express, and Tailwind CSS. You will learn step by step how to create, how to read, how to update, and how to delete employee records while working with a real-world project structure. Along the way, you would also learn to connect React to PostgreSQL database. You learn how to build clean API with Node.js and Express. You learn how to design and build a mobile and responsive UL with Tailwind CSS. You also learn how to manage application states and handle form validation. You learn the best practices for structuring a production-ready PERN application. By the end of this video, you have a portfolio-worthy project, real backend and front-end experience, and the confidence to build your own PenStack application. This tutorial is perfect for beginners and developers looking to sharpen their skin. Alright, let's get started. So we'll start by building the header, and then we have a button here. Then for the table displaying the employee record, we have the ID, the name, the email, the age, the role, the salary, and then the actions to perform on each record. So we have all of the records right here. You can see we have 5869. For the ID, we have the name Zuli, Hello update, Amina Neil. For the email, we have zuli@gmail.com, Hello1, Hello Amina. Age, we have the age here, we have the role, we have the salary. Okay, so for the ID, I deleted some while testing. Okay, so that's why we have different IDs here. I'm still going to delete one here to show you that this works perfectly. So first, we're going to try to add to the project. We'll add a record now. So if I click on add employee, we're going to see this blank page and we're going to fill. So let's say I want to use Sam, and then the email, let's say sam@gmail.com. Let's say the age is 26, and then the salary, let's use 120, and then I'm going to select a role, let's say sales. If I click on add, this should be added instantly. Okay, let me add one more employee. So I'm going to delete this record that I had earlier. The role, let's say developer. Now let's say I want to use Julie, email julie@gmail.com. The age, let's say 24, and then the salary, let's say 130, and then I click on add. This has been added as well. Okay, so this is how we add. Now let's say I want to delete. If I want to delete an employee record, all I need to do is click on this red icon that we have here. So if I click on this now, we should be getting this notification, employee details deleted. Right, let's say we want to update the details of an employee. Let's say for the next year their age changes, obviously they had one more year, or let's say they were promoted, or let's say the salary has been increased. We can do that with this edit icon. So if I click on this icon, we should be able to update the record of our employee. All right, so let's say I want to change the age to 24, and then I want to change the salary to 400. Let's say the role still remains the same. If I click on updates, you're going to see that it has been changed right here. hello1@gmail.com, the age, the role, and the details. Okay, so this is how this works, and this is what we're going to be building in this tutorial. All right, let's get started. To start building, you're going to open your code editor, and then you'll click on open folder, click on file, click on open folder, and then locate the folder where you want to create the project, and then you're going to create the project. So employee PenStack, select the folder, and then you open it in VS Code. So it's asking if I trust. Yes, I do. I'm going to close this. I'm going to reduce this a bit, and then we can start our project. So first off, we need to create a folder. We'll create the backend folder, and also we'll create the front-end folder. So we'll start with our backend. So on the backend, click on that folder, and then you open it in integrated terminal. Once you open this, click on it as well, and then create a new file. I'm going to name the file server.js. So this is going to be our entry point now. And now you're going to type in this npm init So you're going to see this from package name, backend, version 1.0, description, press enter. Our entry point is server.js, press enter, test command, git repo, keywords, author, license, type. Are you okay with this? Yes. And then you should get your package.json. Okay. Okay, so now that we have this, we need to install the packages that we're going to be using for this backend to make it work. So you start with npm install body parser. I'm going to explain what each of them are for. We'll install cos.env, express, nodemon, and then postgres. Okay, then you press enter. Ensure you're connected to the internet. While this is installing, I'm going to be explaining. So these are installed now. Now let's go through each of them. We'll start with body parser. You're going to see it right here once you install its dependencies, right? So for body parser is used to read and parse incoming requests bodies like a JSON or a form data so that you can access them via request.body. Okay, and then we have cause. So for cause, it allows your front end, which is React that we're using, to communicate with the backend even when they're on different URL or ports. Then we have .env. So for .env, load the environment variable from a .env file. This is where you're going to keep your database password, your API keys, so that it's going to be safe. And then we have Express. For Express, it's a Node.js framework that is used to build the backend server and API easily. So we want to build our routes, requests, and responses. We're using Express. And then we have the nodemon. The nodemon is a development tool that automatically restarts your server whenever you make changes to your backend code, and it saves time during development. So you don't really need to be going, you don't need to be restarting your server. You restart your server automatically. And then we have the PG, which is Postgres, Postgres SQL clients for Node.js. It lets your backend connect and interact with the Postgres SQL database. It runs query, it inserts data, etc. So basically, our expert builds the server, our PG talks to the database, our body parser reads the data, our cause connects frontend with backend, the TMV protects secrets like your API password, and then your nodemon it boosts productivity basically. So we've installed all the dependencies that we're going to be using for this project. Now let's get to the main work. So now we're going to make changes in our package.json. So where we have type, we're going to delete every single thing that we have there, and I'm going to paste this. Okay, so now our type is module, our main will be server.js. For our script, the start will be node server.js, and our server will use nodemon to restart the server. Okay, so this is what is going to be replaced by. Now we're going to build a basic server to see if this is actually working. So first step is to import express from express, oh no, express, and then we're going to import the middleware to pass incoming JSON bodies. So I'm going to import body parser from body parser. Also, we're going to import the middleware to enable cause. So we're going to import cause from cause, and also we need to load our environment variable for from .env file, although we don't have that file yet, but regardless we're going to have .env from .env. Okay, so now that we have this, the next step is to initialize our .env configuration. So we'll have .env .config. Then we're going to create an express application instance. So const app will be equals to express. Next thing is to define our port number that our server will run on. So const port, I want the server to run on port 4000. So this is going to be on port 4000. You can change it to wherever you want. It can be 5172, 5173, 5174, whichever port number you're comfortable with. Then we need to configure our course so that it allows requests from any origin. So we're going to have const course option will be equal to origin colon from any origin at all. Now we need to enable course middleware. So that is going to be app.use course options. Also, the next step is to pass incoming JSON request. So it's going to be app.use body parser.json. So the next thing now is to undo requests is and error handling middleware. Okay, so we're going to have app.use error. Let's say that's a request, and then response next. So if there is any, you want to use the custom status code if provided, otherwise default to 5000. So we're going to have const status code will be equal to error dot status code or default to 5000. Okay, so or we should use a custom error message if provided, otherwise it should display the default message. So const message would be error dot message or internal server error, and then we'll send error response. So we're going to have return error dot status code, error dot status to display the status code dot json error. That's the error should display the message that we have defined. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is to create the root route to verify that API is running. So app.get forward slash request and response.send API working. So if our API is working, this is what we should get. Now we should start. So now we're going to start the server and listen for incoming requests. So we're going to have app.listen. The ports, remember that we've set the ports number. And then we're going to have console. We'll log in console.log server started on ports. Then we'll concatenate the ports. Okay, so server started on ports and then the port number. So we have port 4000. Okay, so now if I run npm run server, we should get this message: server started on port 4000. And if we visit this, we should get API working. So first off, let us run this and let's see if we're going to get server started on port 4000. So I'm going to do npm run server, and then I'll press enter. And then as you can see, we're getting this message. Let me enlarge this. You can see right here, server started on port 4000. Okay, so this is working well. So the next thing we need to do now is to connect to Postgre database. We should set up the database. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is ensure that you have downloaded PostgreSQL. So I'll show you the official website now. PostgreSQL. Okay, you visit the official website www.postgresql.org. Click on this and ensure you download Postgre. Once you have that downloaded for either Linux, Mac OS, Windows, Solaris, and all of that, just ensure you download it to your own system and then you install it. Once you're done with the installation, then you can now continue with this tutorial. Please, if you do not install PostgreSQL, note that this is not going to work. And also remember to note your password when you're building. Ensure you note the password because you're going to need it in your .env file. When you're installing PostgreSQL, you'll be asked to set up a password. So please ensure you note it. And once you have installed it and then you type in Postgre, you should see this SQL shell. It will show that you have installed. Okay, so let's continue with our tutorial. Okay. All right, so now in our backend folder, we're going to create a folder for utilities. So I'm going to name the folder utils. In this folder, I'm going to have a file for connect database.js. So this is where I'm going to set up the database connection. So we're working with PostgreSQL. First thing you need to do is to import it. Import pg from pg. And then we need to load our environment variable. Right now we have no environment variable, so we'll create a new file .env. Now in this new file is where we are going to have everything, all our, so we're going to have our secret details that we do not want to share with public in here. So first we'll start with the username. So the user, we're using Postgres. Then our pg hosts is local hosts. Then we have pg database, this Postgres as well. And then the ports, pg ports 5432, and then your password, which I said you should note earlier. I'm just going to enter mine here. Okay, so now let's connect with database. So now we need to load our .env file. So we need to load env from .env, and also we need to load the variables from .env into process.env. So we're going to have environment.config. Next thing is to list all the required environment variable for our database connection. So I'm going to name this requirement variables. Let me just say requirement environment variables. This should make sense. We need this, right? We need the hosts, so I'm just going to copy this. We need this. We need this as well. We need the ports. And also we need the password. Okay. So once we have this now, we need to validate all the requirements, all the required environment variable that exists. So required environment variable dot for each. We'll pass the variable names. Then we're going to check if there is a missing variable. If there is a missing variable, we want to log in the console that this particular variable is missing. And then we're going to stop the app. So if not process dot env variable name, then we'll log in console. We use our backtick because we want to have, so right here we're going to have missing required environment variable. Then we'll have a $sign so that we can have the variable name. Okay, then we'll stop the app if the environment variable is missing. So we'll have process dot exits 1. Okay, so now that we have this done, the next thing is to create our PostgreSQL connection pool. So we'll have const db new Postgre database dot pool, open a bracket, then open a curly braces, press enter, then you set the user. So the user is process. We're getting it from our environment variable, right? So process the env dot user. Then we'll have a comma. Then we'll have the hosts, the database, and all of that. So what I'm going to do now is to just copy and then paste. So instead of user here, it's going to be hosts, and here we would have hosts, right? Next is for the database. So we'll have database, and here it's going to be database as well. And then here will be for password, and also right here postgre database dot password. Then next would be for our ports. So right here I'm going to have ports, and here pg ports. So we're fetching this from our environment variable that is here, right? So now we've done this. Next is to connect to the database. So database, we've declared here, we've created the Postgre database connection pool. Now we want to connect to the database. So database.connect dot then open brackets, then you open another one to log in console. Then we'll get this. Once we're connected to the database is connected, or connection available, whichever one, dot catch in case if there's an error. So you should catch the error, open curly braces, then we'll log in console and display this message. If we're unable to connect, we'll to log in console and say connection denied. Then you have the error. Then process that exits 1. Okay, so there's a little mistake right here. Control X. This is supposed to be outside of this, so we'll close this. Then we'll have dot catch. Okay, so this makes sense now. Then I'm going to delete this one here. Okay, so we've created our connection. If there's an error, we want to display connection denied. Okay, so there's a typo here, connection denied. Now the next thing we're going to do now is to listen for an unexpected database error. So db.on open brackets will display error, comma will pass error, which is going to be in a bracket. Then we'll open our curly braces, we'll log in console, database error, and would display the error. Okay, so now that we have this, next thing is to export this connect db query and allow running SQL queries with parameters throughout the app. So we're going to have export const query will be equal to, we'll pass text params, then we'll have database.query text params. Alright, so we have this now. So I'm just going to re-explain, kind of go through it just in case you missed a few explanation. So the first thing we did was to import our PostgreSQL Next is to import the .env so that we can load environment variable from this file right here. Next is to load the environment variable from .env file using process.env, and right here we listed all the requirement environment variable to establish a database connection. These are the environment variables and we've listed it right here so that we can establish a connection, and right here we validated all required environment variable that exists. So we use an if statement to check if there's any missing environment variable. If there's one, we want to display this message saying missing required environment variable with the variable name, and also we want to stop the app if an environment variable is missing. So after that, the next thing that I did was to create a Postgre connection pool. So this is it right here. Next is to establish a database connection. If we're able to load the environment variable, next thing is to create database connection, right? So we've created our database connection. I want to display this message if we're able to establish saying database is connected, and if there's an error, we want to say connection denied, then exit the app if connection is denied. Next thing right here is to listen for unexpected database error. Okay, and we're going to display the error itself. And right here we're exporting the query so that it can be reusable throughout the entire application. So now that we're done with setting up the database connection, in our backend folder we're going to create another folder for controllers, and also we'll create our routes folder. So for the controllers folder we're going to create our employee controllers function. So now we need to understand what controllers are. So we need to get what controllers are. So controllers basically holds the logic for handling incoming requests, processing data, and sending response, while the route folder I created will be used to map HTTP requests to a specific controller function based on the URL and the method. So when we have functions in the controller function, we're going to use our route to map the request to a specific controller's function, and then we're going to have it here in the server. So you're going to see all of that in action when we start writing the code. So first thing first is to import query from connect database. So once we have imported our query, the next thing we need to do is to create the controller function for get employee, like to get employee details. It will be an asynchronous arrow function, requests, respond, and next will be the parameter. And also we would create controller function for to get get specific employee. So get employee. So instead of having to retype this now, I would just advise that you copy this and then you paste it here, then you just change the name. So this is to get specific employee. Next is to delete employee. So we're going to have delete employee. So this is going to delete a specific employee. Then we're going to have update employee. So this is going to update the details of an employee, and then we're going to have the create employee controller function. So this would create employee. So now we're going to export all the controller functions: get all employee, get employee, delete employee, update employee, create employee. Okay, so now that we have updated it now, we're now going to open our routes and create a file. So this is going to take employee routes.js. So here we're going to have employee routes.js. Like I said earlier, our employee route is where we're going to map the HTTP request to a specific controller function based on the URL. Okay, so we have all our controllers functions, and now we want to map them in our employee route. So first you import Express from Express package common Express. Then we import all the controller functions. So what I'm going to do is just to copy this, Ctrl C, and then paste it right here from /controllers employee controllers.js. Do not forget to add .js to this. Please do not forget. If not, you'll be running into errors. And next is to create a new Express router instance. So to do that, you do const route will be equals to express dot router. After doing this, we'll start setting up our routes. So the first route will be to create employee. So to create the employee, we're going to use the post method to create. To fetch employee details, we'll use the get method. To delete, we'll use the delete method. And to update, we'll use the put method. So we'll start by creating. So we'll have router dot post method to create. Open our brackets. Your quotes forward slash will be, then we'll have create employee controller function. Okay. Next is to get employee. So router dot get open bracket slash, and this will be to get all employee. Then to update employee, we'll have router dot, we use the put method forward slash. To update employee details, we want to update each details. We want to update details of a specific employee, not the entire employee, right? So we're going to be using ID. Now, an ID is unique to an employee. Like I showed you earlier when we're making during the introduction, different IDs for different employees. So an ID is unique to an employee details. So we want to use ID to uniquely identify each details of an employee. So here we'll pass the update employee. Then we have router dot delete. This would be to delete employee, and we're also using ID so that we can specifically fetch the details of the employee that we want to delete. Now to get the entire employee, we'll use router dot get method, and this here would be to get employee, to get a specific employee. Now to get a specific employee, we're also going to use ID. So colon ID. So this right here, we have set up the routes. Okay. Next thing we need to do is to export the router to use in the main app. So we're going to have export default router. Okay, we've set up our routes. Now we'll open our server.js, and right here immediately after body parser.json, we're going to have app.use open bracket. Then we'll have our quotes slash API slash employee comma employee routes. So we're going to have employee routes. So now that we've passed this, we need to import it. So we're going to import employee routes from dot forward slash routes slash employee routes.js. Okay, so now that we've imported this, we're still running into error. Now let's see what the error is. ConnectDB imported from, okay, so if we check employee, okay, we have ConnectDB. It should have .js. You know, I said it earlier. Imagine I forgot to do the same thing. Okay, so now you can see server started on port 4000, database is connected. Okay, so you can see now that our database is actually connected, and now I'm going to close our database connection, and then in our utility file, in our utility folder, I mean, we're going to have our query to structure our data, basically our PostgreSQL query. So right here, we'll create a new file, and we're going to name it SQL query.js as well. So in here, we would create the rows for each employee to restrict different employee, right, from different rows. Also, we're going to create the details that we want in our employee table. We'll write the query to fetch all the records. We'll write query to create a new employee, and we'll also write the query to fetch a single employee, to delete an employee, to update an existing employee. Okay, so let's start with the restriction. So we'll create a PostgreSQL enum type for employee roles. So this will restrict role values to a predefined list. So let's start. Export const creates role query, and this will be equal to use a backtick. In between this backtick, we have create type, then we'll have the role type as enum, then we'll have, so the first one will be developer, then we'll have manager, also we'll have sales, would have admin, and would have intern. Okay, so that is that. Then you put your semicolon. Now the next thing is to create the query to for employee details. So for the table, so we're going to store employee information with constraints and also for data integrity. So first export const creates employee, the table query would be equal to backtick, press enter, then you press a tab. So first this would be to create table, and the table name would be employee details, open our bracket. So in the employee details, we're going to have our ID, would use serial, primary key, comma, then we'll have the name. So the ID would be auto increasing, okay, because it's unique. So the ID will start from 1, 2, 3, 4, stuff like that. So we're going to create the employee name as well. So the employee name is required, right? So we have name, and then the variable character should take nothing more than 50. Then we would have not null. So it's compulsory for each employee to have a name. Then we'll have the email. Email ID will also be unique to an employee. So 50, not null as well, and it has to be unique. Then we'll have the age, small integer, not null as well. And then we want to check the age of the employee. So check, we should ensure that the age of our employee is more than 18. So at least 18 years, right? So that's the official age for working here in Nigeria. If you're not from Nigeria, please drop it down in the comment section where you're from. I would love to know where you guys are from. Alright, next is for the role type. So not null as well. And by default, if the role is not filled, it should be intern. So if the employee role is not filled, by default, you should just store it as intern. So next is the salary. At least it should have 2 decimal. So 8,2. It shouldn't be null as well. So not null. Alright. Next is to fetch all employee records. So we'll have export const gets all employee, the query. We'll start with the backtick. So to get all employee, we'll use select all from employee details. So to get all employee, we're selecting all from this table that we've created. Alright. Next is to create employee query. So to create a new employee query, this right here is to create the table for all employee. Now we want to create a new employee details, right? So we want to insert into this table that we have right here that we've created here. We want to insert the details of the employee into this create employee table. So for that, exports const. I'm using exports because I want all of this function. I want this query, sorry, to be reusable in another part of the project. Okay, so we'll have create employee query will be equal to, then would use insert into employee details, would have the name, email, the age, the role, salary. You can add more, so this is just for tutorial sake, and then we'll have the values that we want to insert. So 1, and then 2, 3, we'll put our comma. Then for the row type, we'll open our brackets, and then we'll have 4 row type. By default, it should be intern. Okay, so this is for the row type. Then we'll add our comma, and then we would have 5 right here. So now we're going to return all the details that we've inserted, all the values that has been inserted. Okay, so now next thing is to fetch a single employee by ID. So we're going to have export const get employee query. We'll have our backtick, press enter, select all from our employee details table, and then we'll pass the ID. So where ID equals 1. Okay, then we'll write the query to delete an employee details. So instead of having to rewrite, I'm just going to copy this and then paste it here. But here it's going to be delete employee query. So here is going to be delete, not all, delete from, okay, delete from employee details table where ID is this. Okay, now the next thing is to write query to update an existing employee details. Okay, so for this now, export const update employee query. Now we'll use the update query and update employee details table. Then we'll start to set name. So we're using this calls to keep existing values if the new ones are not provided. Okay, so just in case you click on update icon and you did not provide any value, the previous details will still be saved. So So we'll update for name, we'll update for age. So instead of having to retype, I'm just going to add a comma, highlight this, then Control D just once. I'll turn this into email, comma, and this would be for age. We'll have a comma. This right here would be for role. We'll add a comma, and then this here would be for salary. All right, so now we need to change this to 2, this will be changed to 3, this will be changed to 4, and also we'll set the row type to our default row type just in case nothing is added, and then we'll change this to 5. Okay, so now we would now set where id is 6, return all. All right, so we've written the query, our SQL query that we're going to be using, and this is it right here. Okay, so now we need to import all of this into our employee controllers function. We're going to import create employee table query, create the row query, create employee query, so that's for each employee. Then we would also import the delete all employee query. We'll import the get all employee query, and then update employee query. Yes, I think that's, let me close this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's check. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so what are we missing? Delete, get, create, get all. Do we have get all? We have create role, create employee, create row, get all. Okay, then to get a specific employee query, okay, get employee query. Okay, yes, yes, I think so. Get all employee. No. I mean, get employee query. Yes. All right. So we've imported all the queries that are needed now. So we can start writing our controllers function. So we'll start with our try catch statement. In the try statement, we're going to check if the employee table exists in the database. Const response would be equal to await query. Use our backtick, then we'll use select to reg class. Want to check if the employee details exist. If it does, let us log it in the console response. Okay. If the table does not exist, we need to create the required table. So we'll use an if statement to check if not response dot rows dot to reg class rows not row. Okay, so dot row dot to open our curly braces, then we'll create the table, we'll create the row table. So await query create row query. After creating row query, then we'll now create the employee table. So we'll have await query. That is if it does not exist. We're still within the if statement. So we'll create employee table query. Okay, so this is for if it does not exist. Right here we want to check if the employee table details exist in database. If it doesn't, we're doing this. Now if it does, we're going to fetch all the record in that table. So const rows, this should be outside the if statement. So const rows will be await query, open our bracket, get all employee query, and response.json rows. Okay, then we'll use our cat block to log the error in console. That is if there's an error, that's message. So this is to get all employee. Now we need to create employee. Okay, now to create employee, we'll use the try catch statement. So we'll start with the try block. First, we need to extract the employee details from request.body. You know, when you're going to create employee, you're going to use a form, right? So we need to fetch the details that will be filled in that form from request.body. So const, we need the name, we need age, we need row, we need salary, and we need email for the employee, and we're fetching that from request.body. All right, and also we need to validate the required field. All field must be filled. If one field is missing, we want to display a message that a field is missing. Okay, so we'd use an if statement. If not name or not row or not age, there should be an or here, not a comma, or not age or common, or not salary, or not email. Then we want to return response.json, open brackets, then open your curly braces. Inside that bracket, error should be missing fields. That is for if any of the field is missing. So if none is missing, now we want to insert the new employee details into our database. So we'll have const data would be equal to await query, open our brackets, create employee query, comma, and then we'll open our square bracket, then we'll enter the name, the email, the salary, the age, and the row. Then we would respond data dot rows. If there's any error, we'll log the error in console. So I'm just going to copy this. We'll log the error in console. Okay, so this is to create employee. Now to get a specific employee is the next thing. So now to get a specific employee, we're going to use the ID from the route parameter. So const ID would be equals to request.params request.params.id, and then we'll fetch employee by ID. So we'll have const data would be equal to await to fetch from database our query, open our brackets, get employee query, comma, ID. Then we'll log into console the data. Okay, but we also need to check if no employee record is found, we should return an error message saying employee record not found. So we'll use an if statement, then you check if not data dot rows dot length, then we want to return, we should return an error message, response.json, open our brackets, open our curly braces, error would be employee record not found. Okay, that is if the employee record is not actually found. But if it is, then we want to return the details. So response.json data.rows. Now to delete the details of an employee. If we're deleting the details of an employee, we're going to be doing the same thing that we did there. First, we need to fetch the ID of the employee that would want to delete, and then const data would be equal to await query, open bracket, delete employee query, comma, would pass ID to this as well, ID, and also if no rows were affected, that means the employee doesn't exist, right? So we're going to have if, open our brackets, if not data dot row count, open our curly braces, then we're going to return this employee record not found. But if it was found, then we're going to have response.json, open our bracket, open curly braces, message would be employee successfully deleted. Okay, that is for deleting employee. Next is to update the employee. So this is supposed to be in, okay, so this is for delete employee. All right, so now to update employee would use try cat statement. In our try block would extract the employee ID from the parameter, same thing that we did here, because we want to update a specific employee details. That is why we're extracting the ID first. Then we need to extract the updated field from request.body, and then we're going to come right here. Okay, I would copy this and then paste it here. Okay, so we've extracted updated field from request body. Now I want to execute the update query. So const results would be equal to await query, update employee query, would have the name, email, age, salary, and the role, and then the ID as well. Then after this, we'll check if results dot row count equals 0. That means if no rows were updated, that means the employee is not found. So open this. Okay, this is supposed to be 3, not 4. So if no row was updated, we want to return this error, employee not updated. Or you can have something like update failed. Okay, but if it was updated, we should return the updated employee record. So response.json results dot rows Open our square brackets. Now for the catch error, for the catch block, you should set the response.json, open bracket, open curly braces, error, that's message. Okay, so we've created for all controller functions. Let's go through them one after the other. So this is a controller function to get the details of all employee. We're using our try catch block. So this first line here is to check if the employee detail actually exists in the database. If it does, we want to log it in the console. If it doesn't, we would first create the row query, then we'll now create the employee table query. That is if it doesn't. That is what we have here. Now, if it does, then we're fetching all employee record, which is what this line is for. And also, we want to display it in JSON format. That is what this line is for. If there's any error, the catch block will log the error in console. Next is to get details of a specific employee by their ID. So to get a specific employee by their ID, first thing is to get the employee ID from the route params. Next is to fetch the employee by their ID in the query table, then we'll log the data in console. Now, this if statement here is for if we're not able to fetch any employee by that ID. That means the record is not found, the details is not updated. But if it is, they want to display it in JSON format. Next is to delete employee record. So to delete, we're deleting by ID as well. So we're going to be fetching the ID from the route, then right here we're going to delete the employee details. And this if statement here is for if no rows were affected, that means the employee record was not found. If it is not affected, if it is affected, then it should display this message: employee successfully deleted. Now to update employee, we're using the try catch. To update employee, we're going to be updating a specific employee, So we need to first extract their ID, then we need to extract the updated field from the request body. Also, we need to execute the update query. That is what this line is for. If no rows are affected, if you click on update, you click on save, and nothing has changed, that means the employee record is not updated. In short, the employee record is not found. That is basically it. And for this line right here is to return the updated employee if it is found. Catch block would do a thing. So just do its thing, catch the error and display the message. Now to the main gist, which is to create employee. We need to extract the employee details from requested body. They are going to be filling via a form, and also we need to ensure that no field is missing. So if any field is missing, whether it's the name, the role, the age, salary, or email, we're going to display this message missing field, right? And now we're inserting the new employee into database. We're inserting the details from their name, email, age, role, salary, and also we return newly created employee details. Okay, so this is all for the employee controllers function. Now we're going to be testing to see if any of this is working at all. We've created our route. So I'm going to be using Thunder client for this. So let me just make a new request. Okay, so right here, the first thing I want to test is to create employee. Let us create before we fetch anything. So now we'll start with the employee route. To create employee, this is the route /, and in our server, the employee route is /API/employee. So we need to get that as well. I'm going to copy these and then right here. So right here, I'm going to delete this. Okay, to create employee, we're using the post method. So note that. So we'll use the post method. Now our URL is http colon slash slash localhost. Our port is port 4000 slash API slash employee, right? So if I click on send now, so right here we'll click on body, and then we'll open our curly braces. So first quote, we want to create for name, and the details will be, let's use Zuli, that's my alias, and then we'll have for age, right? And for age would have, let's say 20, comma, would have we have salary, and for salary let us use, it's going to be a number, so I'm just going to use 1 2 3 4. Then the row, yeah, I'm going to use admin, add a comma, then would have let's see, what else are we adding here? Okay, the email, yeah, that's what's missing. So email, comma, oh, not comma, colon, Zuli at sample.com. Okay, so I've used our post method. If I click on send now, oh, my network. So we have the details here, Zuli, the age, the salary. So let's just add one to this, right? And then if I click on send now, we should get this right here. Status code 200, the size, the time, and this is the details. So the ID is 14 because this is the 14th item we're adding to this database on this server. Okay, so let's say I want to add something else. Let's say I want to add more. Let's just say Josh, the age is 23, salary is 2000, and the role is developer, and the email, let's say josh at gmail.com. If I click on send, this should be added. You can see the ID is 15, the name, the email, the age, the role, and the salary. Okay, so we've tested for create employee. So right here, the create employee function, controller function has been tested. We have the name, email, age, role, and salary that we're getting from request.body, which is the same thing that we've done here. Okay, so let's say we want to get all employees. For all employee, the route as well is /, and also we're going to be using get method. So first thing first is to change this to get method. I want to get details for all employees. If I click on send, you're going to see that we're getting details for all the employees that we've added to this database. Okay, so this is all we've added to this database. Okay, so let's test for getting specific employee. So to get specific employee, we're also going to be using the we're going to be using the get method, but we need to pass the ID. So let us say we want to get this employee right here, these details. The ID here is 14, so I'm just going to add /14. If I hit send now, I should get the entire details for this particular employee. Okay, all right, let's test for delete employee, and we're going to add the ID as well. So we'll use the delete method. Let's say we want to delete these details now. If I click on send, you're going to get this message: employee successfully deleted. Now if we want to get all employee, we should see if this particular employee is still there. If I click on send, we're getting an error: employee record not found, because it has been deleted, right? So that means that this is working perfectly well. We're able to delete, we're able to create employee details, and we're able to get a specific employee. Okay, so now let's say we want to update the details of an employee. We're going to add the ID of that employee. So we still have 15, the record for 15 or let's just do this. Let us see all what we have. We have employee with ID 6, employee with ID 9, 11, 12, 18, 13, 15. Okay, so let us update this 15. Let's say we want to change the age, I want to change the role and the salary. So for update employee, we're using the puts method. So right here, we're going to use put. The ID of the employee is 15, and in our request.body, we want to change the age to 24. I want to change the salary, let's say to 3,000. The salary to 3,000. If I hit send now, we should get this now. The ID is 15, the name, the email, the age has been changed, and the role has been changed as well. So now let's say we want to get this specific employee with ID 15. If I hit send, we should still be getting the same details. So basically, this is working perfectly well. So we're able to get all employee details, we're able to get a specific employee details, we're able to delete details of an employee, we're able to update an employee detail, and we're also able to create details of employee. So this now is working perfectly well. So we're done with the backend. So we need to start working on our front end. So I'm going to close everything that has to do with backend. I'll close all the files relating to backend, and then we're going to open our front end. So for the front end, you right click, then you open it in integrated terminal. Okay, so we're going to run npm create vit at latest space, you press full stop, then you press enter. So let me expand this well so that we can see everything we have. So you'll be prompted to select a framework. We're using React, press enter. Then you'll be asked to select a variant. We're using JavaScript, press enter. If you want to use roll down Vite, which is experimental, you can just select yes, and you can select no if you don't want to. I'm going to be using it, so I'll select yes. Install with npm and start now, no, and then we're going to do this manually. So we're going to type npm install. This is going to install all React packages for Vite. Okay, so while this is installing, there are a few things that we also need to install. We need to install Tailwind. We need to install React icons because we're going to be using the delete icon and the edit icon. We need to install React Hot Toast so that we can display toast notification. We need to install Turnstile query as well. So let's just go to our browser and do that. So to install React icon, you're going to type in React icons. Then you would visit this website, www.npmjs.com, the package, and then for React icon. So I'm just going to click this and it will lead us to this website. And also we need to install Tailwind CSS. So we need to install React Toasts. React Hot Toast, yeah. So Hot Toasts, the npm package as well. So let's install React icon first off. I'm just going to paste it here, press enter, and then Tailwind CSS as well. If you're on the official website, just click on docs for the documentation. We're installing for Vite. So first step is to create our project, which we've already done. Next is to install Tailwind CSS, and that you're going to copy the source code here and paste it on the terminal. So we've installed React icon. Now Tailwind. So Tailwind configuration, you need to configure the Vite plugin. So we'll copy this line of code and then we'll paste it here where we have vite.config.js, and then we'll copy this as well. And we'll paste it right here. So after React, you put a comma and then you paste this. Next is to import the Tailwind CSS. So in our global CSS, which is index.css, we're going to paste. So we'll open the source, index.css. I'll delete everything we have here. So Control A, delete, and then I'm going to paste this. Then the next thing is to start our build process, which we're going to do. So we've installed React icon, we've installed Tailwind CSS. We need to install React Hot Toast. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it on the terminal as well. Press enter. So while this is installing, I'm going to delete app.css because I'm not going to be using it for this project at all. So we delete, and then our app.jsx, we delete every single thing we have there, and you're going to type in refc to create React arrow function. So this is going to create React snippets. If this does not work, that means you do not have this extension, EX7 React Redux React Native Snippet extension. So to install this, just click on this extension icon, then you come right here in the search bar, you type in ES7 plus React slash Redux slash React Native Snippet. Once you have done that, that should work. Okay, so we're done with the installation. Another thing we need to install is our Tanstack React query. So let me just type in Tanstack query, press enter. So you come right here. So now that we're here, you're going to install the npm package for Tanstack React query. So once we click on this now, once you're on this page, you're going to copy this installation code. Then you're going to paste it on your terminal. So while this is installing, just need to create our component and our utility. So I just created a folder now. Create a folder for components and also another folder for utilities. So series be here. In the component folder, we're going to have employee table file and employee table GSX. Then we use REFC to create React snippets. Then we have employee modal, that would be the modal, or if you want to add, if you want to create an employee detail, you can edit an employee. So that is the modal. So I'm going to close this two now. And then in our utility section, we're going to create a file for query clients. .js. Okay, so now that this is done, let me close this. I'm closing this as well. So first, let's start with the query clients. So in the query clients, we're going to import query clients from Tanstack query. So once we have imported that, then we'll export the query client, export const query clients equals to new query clients function. Okay, so with this now, we're going to wrap our main.js, our entire application with the query client provider. So I'm just going to turn this into a comment, control forward slash. Okay. So now we map this. We're going to use query clients context, query client provider. Then our app will be in between. That's okay. So we'll wrap our application with query clients, and also we're going to pass clients. We equal to query clients from utils slash query clients.js. Provide, okay, that was a type error. Okay, so we've wrapped our application with our Tanstack query clients so that we can use it within the entire application. All right, so this part is done. Now the next part is to start with the employee table. So in our employee table, what we're expected to do is to display our table directly. But we're here to get our data from the backend. We've not connected the front end to the backend. So if we want to start with employee table, it's just going to be like the table header. There will be nothing in the body. So the best thing we can do now is to fetch our data. So we're going to do that in app.js. Okay, so first off, we need to get our URL. So I'm going to be using export const. I'm using export because we're going to be using the URL elsewhere. Okay, so let me just say backend URL. We equal to http // colon slash slash localhost. We know our port number already for 4000 slash API slash. Okay, so this is our backend URL. That means we can fetch data from our backend server. Okay, so now before we start designing, start doing everything, design, we're going to first create the function to fetch employee details from API. That is the details that we added when we were testing, so that we can have something to display in the table. So we need to create the function to fetch employee details from the API. It's going to be an asynchronous function. So async function, the function name fetch employee details, and the parameter take nothing actually. So inside our function, we're going to make a GET request to the backend. Const response EL8 fetch the backend. Then the next thing we need to do is to pass the JSON response in our data. So const data, this is going to store the response and the JSON file. Response.json. Now we now need to do the necessary checks. If the response is successful, what am I saying? If the response is not successful, we want to try an error. Okay, so we're going to have if brackets not response. It's okay. Then true new error. Take data. That is if the response is not successful. Outside this if statement, if the response is successful, we want to return the fetched employee details. So we're just going to have return data. Okay, and it's going to return that data as a JSON file. I hope that is understood. So that is for this particular asynchronous function. Now we're moving outside that container. Now I want to use query to fetch and manage employee data. Okay, so const, we're going to have spending error command data error to be equals to use query open up brackets when the curly braces the unique key used by React query fetching and refetching. So we're going to use query key, then the name of the table that we want to fetch is employee details table, right? So employee details is the name of the table that we want to fetch, comma. Then now we need the function that actually fetches the data. So we're going to have query function fetch employee details. Okay, so we have this now. Outside this, we now want to show like a loading UI while the data is being fetched. That is why we have this is pending right here. So while the data is being fetched, let's say there's like a network issue or whatever, slow network, we just want to show that the data is being fetched. So if it's pending, then return brackets if I will show this. Okay, that is for if it is pending. Now, if there's any error, I want to display an error message. So if open brackets is error, return it's going to display error. That's the message already set at the backend. Okay, so we have this already. Now we can now use the we're able to get our backend URL. We have the function to fetch employee data. We're using the query already. Now we can now work on the application itself. So what we want to render in our application. So for this application, the first thing we want to have is a div tag. Inside that div tag, we're going to have another div tag. Then we're going to mount, after the div tag, we're going to mount our employee table. Okay, so the div tag on top of this employee table is where we're going to have our H1 tag for the title of the project, employee management. Then we're going to have our employee model. So, employee, okay, let me see in the model. Okay, employee model. Okay, so the employee model not take a self-closing tag. We're going to see it using the tag because we're going to be having a button to add employee, but right now we're going to have an employee model right here. Now let us even open this file and let us start the server, the front end npm press enter, and let's see. We should see the H1, we should see employee model, we should see employee table. Nothing basically, it should just be what we have here: employee model, employee table, and employee management. Okay, so we're getting an error. Now let's see. Use query is not the function. Okay, use query is not defined. Okay, let me reduce this. Okay, we're using use query here and we did not import it. Okay, so we need to import use query from Tanstack React query. Okay, you can see now we're getting loading. Now the data is actually loading, right? And that is because we've not started the backend server. So let me open another terminal and then let me change directory to backend. And then I start the server npm run press enter, database connected. You can see that now. You can see instantly, as soon as our database was connected, we're getting this header, employee management, we're getting employee model, and we're getting employee table. Okay, so that means that all we've been doing is correct. If there's an issue with your server loading, your front end is not able to connect with your backend, you're going to be getting this message loading. Okay, so now we can continue our projects. Also, please note something. In query client.js, the queue here should be lowercase. Okay, so you should as well change it here. The queue should be lowercase, just in case you have that kind of error. Okay, so we can now create our employee table. Let's start with employee table. Now, for employee table, we need the backend URL, right? We need the tools notification from React or tools. We need the icons. We also need the employee model. We're just work on that. We need it, and we need our query client as well. The utility folder. So now we need to get data first. So I'm going to pass the data here. That means in our app.js, we're going to be passing data. Okay, so that we can have data in our employee table. So now, first of all, we need to do some checks. We need to check if there's data from what we're fetching. If there's no data, we want to display that no employee details available in the backend, or just display a message, right? Instead of the main content. So we use an if statement here. If, open brackets, if not data, that means there's no data. Open, use your question mark dot length. Then we're going to display, want to return, open brackets, a div tag, that will display no employee data available, or no employee details available, something like that, whichever one. Okay, no employee details available, no employee data available, just whatever comes to your mind. All right, but if there is data, then we can now display our content. So now let's say there is data. It's because we have few data while we're testing. First, to create a data. Inside this data, we're going to have our table tag. Inside the table tag, we have our table head. That is a table header. And we're going to have table row, header row. Inside this header row, we're going to have th, which is the table header. And right here, we want to have 7 table headers. So th multiplied by 7. So we're having 7 table headers. The first one we take ID, the second we take email, the third take name, the fourth take age, the fifth will take role, the sixth will take salary, the last one will be the action. And the action is going to be the delete and the edits. Okay, so to delete and to edit. Now we're done with the table header. After this table header, we're going to have the table body. Inside our table body, we're going to map over data to display it in a row and to display each data in that row. Okay, so open our curly braces data, let's map method, also pass the item. Then we have table row, and the table row to uniquely identify each pass the key, which is going to be item.id. Now inside each row, we're going to have our data, right? So table data multiplied by 6. Yeah, multiplied by 7, yes, that's 7 items. Yes. So for the first table data, we need to have item.id. The second be the email item. The third would be item name. Then we have item.age. Then we'll have item.role. Then item.salary. Item.salary. And then the last one will be for our action. So for this action, it's really deep tag. Remember that we're going to start React icon. So we're going to have 2 buttons. 2 buttons times 2. So let me separate each button. So the first button will take the delete icon. So there are few ways to access React icons. There are just, let me just show you. You can either do this, type the name of the icon, and React is going to suggest list of icons that will match the name. If that does not come up fast, just you can see now that we have table already. Because while we were testing, we've added, if you remember, we added Josh at gmail.com. Josh, we edited this Josh. The age was 24 initially, the salary as well, we edited it. I added Zuni, then I added sample.com. So this is it. You can see right here that this is working perfectly well. We're able to connect our front end with our backend, and we're getting what we need. The ID is there, the email is there, the name is there, the age, the role, the salary. Now we want to work on the action. And the action is either to delete an employee details or to edit the details of an employee. So you can see that this is working well. Now back to React icons. So just type in React icons, or better still, type in react-icons.github.io/react-icons/. So you just come here, type in what you need. You only need 3 characters to type in actually, but you can just decide to type in the entire thing, and then you're going to get a list of icons that will match whatever you've typed. So I'm having a bit of a network issue here. Delete. It should come up normally. So let me refresh. With us, let me pause and sort this network. Okay. delete, you can see that it's coming up now. So you can choose whichever icon you want to use from the list of icons you're going to get. Okay, so you can just pick any icon that matches with your aesthetic or that matches with what you like, what you prefer. So let's just say I'm going to use this icon right here. Now, I think I want to use this. Yes, this is better. For me, that's my preference. Okay, so you're just going to copy this. Then you head over here, paste it. Then you're going to copy the tag itself, and then you paste it where you actually need it. I need it here. I'm just going to paste it here. Okay, so that's how it works. Just visit our website and you're going to grab several icons that you need. You're perfect. There are so many icons that you can use. Now, for the second button, I want to use the delete icon. So I can just type the edit icon. I can just type in edit, and you can see now that it's coming up. Turn it up down. I can just select whichever icon that matches my aesthetics. Okay, so I want it to be reg delete, reg edit. Why type in this reg? Let me just go to the website. Edit. Then you're going to get different. Okay, so you just choose from whichever one you want to use. So let's say I want to use which one catches my attention. I just need to choose one that I really like. Okay. I think this should work. Yes. I'm going to copy this here. Copy this. Go up here. Paste it. Then copy this. Then paste it where I actually need it. Okay, so that works fine. So we have our icons now. So in here, we should be seeing something like this. You can see. So in the action, we have our delete and then we have the edits. Okay, so now we can decide to start styling first, or we can decide to still work on similar checks if we want to. But I want to start with the styling so that our table is going to look very, very presentable. Then we can now work on every other thing that comes next. So firstly, width set this to full, overflow on X. So also, yeah. Now for the second div tag, the minimum width 225. The background color should be gray, 100, rounded, rounded XL, and then padding 76. Now for this table, we're going to set the width to full, then the table row inside the table header. Text starts from the left, text is small, text color gray 600. Then we have this table header right here. We need to set the padding on X and Y. Okay, so that is done. Then the table row inside the table body as well. We want to set the text to small, text color gray 700, color radius 100. Then we have a transition. So if you hover on it, you should get a background color in gray. Okay, gray 200. Then we want to add a shadow. Then open this square bracket, reset, insert 1 pixel, 2 pixels, and we'll add a color code E5, E5. Okay, so this is done. Now to the table data, we set py to 4, px as well, take 4. So this works now. Then we have the div tag here. Display flex items at the center. We're going to have a gap of 4 between those two icons. Then for the button, both buttons are going to use the same styling. So I'm just going to write the code here, then I'll copy it to the other button. Padding to rounded, large, background 300, shadow 3 pixels, underscore 3 pixels, underscore 6 pixels, underscore 6, comma, minus 3 pixels, underscore minus 3 pixels, underscore 6 pixels, underscore. Then when you hover on it, the shadow should be enough. Then the color for this one will be red, 600. Then add transition. Okay, so this is long enough. All right. So I'm just going to copy this now. I'm going to copy the styling, the entire styling. Come on. Okay, I'm going to copy this and I'll just paste it here. Okay. Now for this, since it's an edit button, we can use blue or green. So let's get to use green. All right. Okay, so this is what we should have now. You can see we have the ID, the email, the name, the age, the room, the salary, and then the action, right? So this is what this is going to look like now. Okay, so we're partially done with the employee table. We still have a lot to do here. This delete and then this edit, but we need to be able to add employee as well. So we're going to be using this modal box right here to add employee. So in this modal component, employee modal component, we want to be able to add employee, that is create an entirely new employee details. And we also want to be able to update an employee details, that is editing an existing employee details. So we're going to be doing both of them simultaneously inside this employee modal. So first thing first, we need to import our backend URL. So I'm just going to import backend URL from our application. And also we're going to import query clients, query ./exe or ./exe/query clients. Okay, that's what we have here, right? Query client. Yes. Okay, let me close this. Okay, we're going to be using this one. Let us continue the project. So first off, we need to create a state variable to control whether the modal is open or closed. We want to use a modal. When you click on a button to create an employee table, the modal is being displayed, and then you're going to add the username, the user email, their salary, their role, and all of that. And also, if you want to edit an existing employee details, it's also going to bring the same modal for you to update it. So we need to create a state variable that is going to control whether it is open or it is closed. And also we need a setter function to update it when there is a change. So open setter function sets open, and that is going to be use state. By default, we're going to set this to false. That means it is closed by default. Now we've created the state variable. Next is to store the states. We need the state to store the input value. So if the form is for adding a new employee, we want to initialize it with an empty field. And if the form is to edit, we need to pre-fill the form with the existing employee data. I don't know if you grab that. What we want to do in this employee model is two things. This employee model will serve as a form, let me put it that way, or a model for us to add an entirely new user. And also we want it to serve as a form to update an existing user. So if we're adding a new user entirely, we're going to initialize all the fields, the name, the email, the role, the salary with empty fields. But if we're updating, that means if we're editing, you want to pre-fill the form with the existing employee data. Right, I hope that is clear. So now we're going to have a const info, comma, set info, that is the info. So we've created the state variable to store whether it is a new data or it is not. If it's new, empty data. If it is not, then we'll pre-fill this. Use state brackets. First, we need to declare the type. So if it is the add, that means we want to add an entirely new data. Then in should be empty. The email should be empty. The salary, oh, out of the curly braces, salary should be empty as well, and the role as well should be empty. So we have name, email, also the age. Yes, after email, let's just have age should be empty as well. Okay. So now, if it is an entirely new details, that is for this type add, then we want all the inputs to be empty. If not, we're going to refill this. Okay, so now we just did this now. If it's entirely new, empty fields. If it is not, then we want to pre-fill it. All right, so that is the first thing we need to do. Another thing we need to do is to undo our input field changes. So we need to dynamically update the corresponding field in the info state variable. So we're going to have the const. We create a function to undo the changes. So const undo changes. Pass e. Now we'll use the setter function set info. Pass the previous value. Open a bracket. Then we'll have our curly braces. Now we're going to spread the previous. Then open a square bracket. E the targets. Dot the name of the field. Then we'll update it with the changes. E dot target dot value. Okay, so now we just created the function to undo our input field changes. So this is done now. Another thing we need to do is to create a mutation for adding a new employee details. Okay, and we're going to be using use mutation from Tanstack query. Now, let's create that. We're going to have the name of this will be add mutation equals to use mutation. Yeah, it's from Tanstack query. Open your bracket, then open your curly braces. Now, inside this now, we need to send a post request with the new employee data. So we're going to have a mutation function. Then we'll have an asynchronous arrow function. And then our parameter will be payload. Now, inside this curly braces, we're going to declare our response, because response will be, we want to send the employee details to the backend. So we have our bits, fetch, then we'll open our bracket, we'll have the backend here that we're getting from our application, a comma, then you open the curly braces. So the method, you declare the method. This is a post method. this should be inside input. So post method, we'll add comma, then we'll have headers, open curly braces, and passing content in type, and this is going to be application slash JSON. So we want this in a JSON file, comma, and we'll have body JSON stringify payloads. Okay, so we have this now. After this, we need to pass the API response. So equal to await response to JSON. If the employee details creation fails, we need to throw an error. So we'll have if statement if not response.json. If not response.ok, then throw new error. Open bracket results error. Okay. If it doesn't fail, then we're going to return the results. All right. So now after this mutation, you add a comma, and then we need to run a successful we need to run after a successful addition. So we're going to have on success colon, then you open brackets, your curly braces, then we'll send the toast notification toast dot success, no, control Z toasts dot, now toast dot success. We're going to have employee added successfully. So now we need to import this toast from React Hot Toast. So I'm going to import toasts from React Hot Toast. Okay, so this should work perfectly. So, and also we need to close the modal after it has been added successfully, right? After the employee has been added, this is for addition. So we'll call the setter function set open, and then we'll set it to false. Next thing we need to do when it's successful is to refresh the data so that we can display the added data. So we'll have query client dot invalidate queries, open brackets, open curly braces. We'll pass the query key. Then we want to refresh employee underscore details. Okay, then you add a comma. Then you run if the, so we are going to have, we have on success, that is if it's successful. Now if there's failure, so we'll have on error, we'll display toast message, toast dot error, error dot message. Okay, so now we've created the mutation for adding a new employee. Next thing we need to work on is to create mutation for updating an existing employee detail. So const update, I'll name the function update mutation will be equal to use mutation, open our brackets, then we'll open our curly braces. So inside this now, we're going to set the put request with an updated employee data. So we're going to have mutation function async function. So it's going to be an arrow function. I'll delete this. Then in this parameter, we're going to pass payload. Then inside this, would make the request const response will be equals to await, want to fetch, open brackets, then backtick, dollar sign. We want to have template literals here, so we'll call the backend URL slash dollar sign, open curly braces, payload dot id of what we want to update, right? Then we'll add a comma. After this, we'll add a comma. Oh, this is supposed to be outside this, not inside. Control X, so slash. Yes, it's supposed to be outside it. Close this now. Okay. Then after this comma, we're going to have a curly braces. Inside this curly braces, we'll set the method like we did for adding. We'll use the put method as we have set it at the back end. Then headers, open curly braces, content type, and then we're going to have application slash JSON. What a comma here. Now the body would be JSON dot stringify payload. Okay, so this is having a little error. We're supposed to have this here. Alright, so this is fixed now. Next thing we need to do is to pass API response and then throw an error if the update fails. Also run a successful update. So we're just going to, instead of having to retype, I'm just going to copy it from here to here. Okay, so I'm just going to paste here. We're going to be getting this error. Let me see. Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z. Okay, so I want to copy right here to this. That is after this, right? So we're going to paste from here before return. Okay. So this is to pass API response. This is to throw error if the update fails, and this is to return results if the update is successful. And also this right here is to run after a successful update. So now this is going to be employee updated successfully. Okay, so we have these two now. We have these two functions. The first function is to add employee. We have the add mutation, and this is to update employee. Then another thing we need to do is to undo form submission. So submission of the form that we want to send. So const undo form submission will be equal to, we're creating a function now. We need to list the required form field. So const required will be equal to, open a square bracket, we'll have the name, right? We'll have email, we'll have the age, salary, we'll have role. I'm not talking. So now we need to validate all the required fields to ensure that they are filled, right, from our front end. So we'll have for const field field of required, open curly braces. We'll check if not info, that means if it's not filled, field dot to string dot string. Then want to return posts dot error. I would say please fill all fields. And now, once this is filled, after this for statement, we need to trigger the appropriate mutation based on the form type. So, we have in this form, we're going to have two types. We're going to have the add type and then the update type. So now we're going to have type. If it is add, then we want to do this. If not, we'll do this. Oh, if it is add, we want to add mutation dot mutate open bracket info. If not, we should update mutation dot mutate info. Okay, so if the type is add, then we'll call this function to update the info. If the type is not add, we'll call this to we'll call this to add the info. If it is not, we'll call this to update it. Okay, so now we have all these functions right here. We can now create our UI. Okay, so for our UI now, we'll create our div tag. So for this div tag, we're going to pass children. After this div tag, we're now going to open the curly braces. So when it is open, then we want to do this, right? So what we want to do is to create a div tag that will serve as the entire container. Then inside that entire container, we'll have backdrop first. So that backdrop will be this div tag here. And inside this backdrop, we would set on click, create our function, then call is set open. We'll set it to false. Okay, so we only have the backdrop when the modal is open. That's just the meaning of what this is. We only have the backdrop when the modal is open. So what we're going to do here is to make this a self-closing tag. Okay, so this is for backdrop. After the backdrop, we'll create another div tag, and the div tag is going to contain the entire, like the actual modal. So inside this modal, we'll have our header. So that will take a div. Inside this div, we'll have our h2 tag for the text, the header text, and the header text will be based on the type of form that we want to open. So we'll do type. We're checking using a ternary operator. If the type is add, then the text that will be displayed will be add employee. If it is not the type add, the text that will be displayed will be update employee. Okay, after this h2 tag, we'll have a button, and that button will be to close the modal. So I'm just going to use X as the button. Now that we're done with this, the div tag containing this header, we'll leave that, then we'll press enter. So we want to create another div tag immediately after this div tag here. Okay, we're going to create another div tag. So I'll create div, and that is where the form is going to come in. That's the container for the form basically. So for this now, we need to dynamically generate input field using a configuration array. So you're going to see how that is done. Instead of having to do label then input field like 4 to 5 times, because we have 5 to 6 input field. So instead of having to do label input the regular way, we can dynamically generate input field using a configuration array. Okay, so let's see how that is done. First, you open your curly braces. Next, you open the square brackets, press enter. Then you open under curly braces. Label will take name, and the name of the field would be name as well. You add a comma, you do another one. Label will take email, the name of the field will be email as well. Then would have another one. Label We'll take age, the name would be age as well, and also we want to set the type to number. So by default, for every other one that we did not set the type, it is going to be a text by default. So the type here is going to be number. Oh, I'm supposed to add a comma here. Okay, now comma, next label for salary, comma, name would be salary. Okay, so we have this now, comma, then after this closing square bracket, we'll add dot map. We want to map over it. You pass field, you open two brackets, field, after the first bracket, you will now have open bracket, and that's where we'll have the wrapper for each input field. So I'll have a div tag, right? Oh, this should be comma, not full stop. I'll have a div tag. Inside this div tag, we'll set a key so that we can uniquely identify each of them, each field. So we want to identify each field, field, by their name. So the key is going to be field dot name. Oh, field. Why am I making mistake? Field dot name. Inside this wrapper, we'll press enter. We'll have label, and then this label is just going to take label. This is going to be field dot label. So after this label, we're going to have our input. Now the input, the type is not going to be for text, right? Because we've set we set type for this to number, so everything is not going to be for text. So this is going to be field, field dot type or text field, right? Also, we need the name that matches with the key in the info state object. So we're going to have name, open our curly braces, field dot name. Then we have the controlled input unit as well. So our value would be info. Then you open your square brackets. We'll have field dot name. After this now, press enter again. Then we'll update the states on the user's input. So we'll have on change. We'll call the undo changes function that we created earlier. So now this is for the input field. Okay, so now that that is done, the next thing is for the role drop down. So for the role drop down, we'll create a div tag as well. That will be the container. So the first thing we need to have is the label, the role label, and the label, the name is going to be role, or you can have it as employee role, whichever one you like. Then we'll create the drop down to select employee role. So we'll use the select. So for this select now, would control the select value. So value would be info dot role. Then we'll update the role in states when selection changes. So we'll call our onChange. Oh no, onChange would create our function call e. Then we'll call setInfo, the previous, and then open our brackets, open our curly braces, and we'll spread the previous. Also, would assign this role will be e.target.value. Okay, so once that is done, in between the select, we're going to have our options. Now the default, the first option would be nothing. for the value. So the text will take select role. Then the second option, the available options, will start listing them. The value here would be HR. So I'm just going to copy this. Then I'll paste it, paste it, paste it, paste it, and paste it again. So we need it 4 times, not 5 times. Yes. So the first role is HR. This will take HR as well. The second would be developer. I'll copy it and then I'll paste it here. The third will be manager. I'll copy this and then I'll paste it here. Then we'll have sales. I'll copy this and then I'll paste it here. And then we'll have intern. I'll copy this, then I'll paste it here. Okay, so after this select, we're done with it. Then the div tag, after the div tag, we'll press enter. Then we're going to have the either the cancel button or the add button. So we'll have a div tag for the buttons. So we'll have 2 buttons. The first button will say cancel, while the second button will be based on the type of data, the type of form that we're using. Okay. So for this first button, the cancel is to close the modal, right? So we'll use the onClick method. Then we'll call the set open function, and then we'll pass this to false. We'll pass false to this, I mean. Now for the second button, we'll check if the type is add, then the text we're going to display would be add, else it would be update. Okay, so this is for our employee modal. Also for our button, we should be able to submit, and we've created that function already. So we'll call undo form submission function. Okay, so one thing we need to take note of is this type that we've been adding, right? So in here, open curly braces, we'll pass children, comma, the type. By default, there's going to be add, and then we're going to pass data. And that's what we're going to be getting from our employee table. So we'll come back to employee table. Now, right here, we mounted our employee model here, right? So it should take this text, add employee, and also we need to set the type here, and the type is going to be add. Okay, so this add employee here would be inside a button. Okay, so I'm going to style the button now. Padding of 2 on X and Y axis. Border radius, so rounded XL. The background color would be gray, 700. Then we'll have a shadow that I want to specify the value. So this would take 4 pixels underscore 4 pixels underscore 8 pixels underscore this color code C5 comma minus 4 pixels underscore minus 4 pixels underscore 8 pixels underscore this color code. So let me just format this document so that this would make more sense. Okay, let me close this. I hope you can see my screen just in case. So this is supposed to be text, not the background. Text gray 700. Yes, it's a text color that should be gray. Then the background color is gray 100. Yes. So this is shadow, typo error. Okay, so let's start the employee model that we've created. So we'll start with this div tag. class name inline block, that should be the display. Then to the second div tag, position, no, we're going to set it to fixed. Position will be fixed. Inset will be set to 0. Z index will set this to 50. Display will be flex. Items center, justify center. Then for this background overlay, we'll set it to absolute. Inset will be set to 0. The background color would be black /40. Then for this modal div tag, position will be set to relative. Width will be full. Max width would be empty. Remix for rounded 2XL. Background color of gray 100. Padding of 6. Then we'll set our shadow. So this will take 10 pixels underscore 10 pixels underscore 25 pixels underscore this color code minus 10 pixels comma underscore minus 10 pixels underscore 25 pixels, right? And then we'll animate, would use fade in. Okay, we're done with this. Now to the header. We'll set display to flex because we have an h2 tag and a button. We'll set items center, justify between, margin bottom of 6. Then we'll have an h2, we'll style the h2 tag, text large, font semi bold, text gray 700. Yes, so this should work. Then for the button as well, the text will be gray 500. Hover, the text will be gray 700. Then we have the next div tag, which is the form container, where we are dynamically generating input field using configuration array. So we'll set the class name of this. We want to add space on y to be 4. Okay, then we have this div here, which is the wrapper for each input field. Okay, so we're not going to style this, but we're going to style the label. So for the label, display would be block, text would be small, text color would be gray 600, and then we'll set margin bottom of 1. Then we have the input field. For this input field, we're going to style it. So width, we'll set it to full. We'll set the padding on y and x. Rounded XL. Background gray 100. Then the shadow would be inner. We would also set the outline to none. And then on focus, ring would be 2. On focus as well, ring would be blue 400. Now for the drop down, we're not styling this div, we're going to style the label. So the label will take the same styling as this label. So I'm just going to copy this instead of having to retype, and then I'll paste it here. Okay, after this label, we're going to style the select. Okay, so for this select, we'll set the width to full. We'll set the padding. We're going to be using the same styling that we have here for the input, for the select. So let's just copy and then paste it here. Where do we paste? Here. So we're using the styling for this input field. We're using the same thing for this select. Okay, so it's the same thing. Background, rounded Excel, background color 100, shadow, inner, outline none, focus rank 2, and then when you focus, it should show blue 400. Okay, so now to the buttons at the footer sections. We have two buttons. So we need to set display flex, justify, and gap of 4, margin top of 8. Okay, then we have the first button, so the cancel button, px of 4, py 2, rounded Excel, background gray 100. We'll set our shadow 3 pixels underscore 3 pixels underscore 6 pixels underscore the color code C5 C5 C5, comma, minus 3 pixels underscore minus 3 pixels underscore 6 pixels, then the color code. Then for the hover, shadow would be set to inner. Okay, so that is for the first button. Now for the second button, we'll set the padding. We'll set this. We'll set the background to blue 500. Text will be set to white. Shadow will be set to large. Then we'll add transition. Then on hover, the background should be blue 600. Okay, so we've styled the modal. So now we'll scroll up back where we have this first div tag here that we pass children to. We're going to call we'll use on click, and then we'll call the set open function. So set open, and we'll set this to true. So if you click on this add button now, you should see this modal. Okay, you're going to get email, salary, role in a drop down list, and you should be able to add. So if I click on cancel, this has been cancelled now. Okay, so we should be able to add to our employee lists with this now. Another thing we need to work on is this updating employee, but first let's try to add to our details. So let me give the name Brown. Okay, if you notice, we're getting okay, let's say Brown Sugar. Let's say that's the person's name, right? And then email sugar@gmail.com. The age, I'll just give it a random age of 23. The salary, I'll pick 1-3. Then developer, if I click on add now, okay, so this button is not working yet. Now let's work on this. So now let us check. If we check our backend now, you can see we're getting this error, invalid input syntax for small ints, and then it's giving us this age. So that means we're not passing the value to our database correctly. So what we're going to do now is to check how we set the value as we're sending it. Okay, and that is going to be not here. Let me see, not in app.jsx. So basically, we're just going to align everything to ensure that as we have it in the backend, that is the same way we're going to have it in the front end. So I'm going to open backend, our controllers function, employee. So it starts with name, email, age, role, salary. Okay, so we have to arrange it in our front end in that order. So right here, our employee table should start with name, then email. Right here we have age, role, salary, age, role, salary. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. Name, email, then age, role, salary. Okay, so this is for employee table in the modal as well. Name, email, age, role, salary. Okay, I think that works. Name, email, age, role, salary. Yes. Let's see, is there any other place we are? Okay, for our label as well, name, email, age, the role will come here, and then we have salary. Yes, so this works. Okay, so I found the error, and the error is coming from this our undo changes function. Okay, so the reason is because the our info, this set info here, is being sent to the database as an array. The age is being sent as an array, and we want the age to be a number, not a text. Okay, so you need to edit your undo changes function. So right here you're going to add type, and then set info. Then right here, this is where the main work is. I want to check if the name of that label, then the type, if the type is number, then it should be, the value should be saved as a number. If not, we should just have the regular value. That is, if the type, the value type is number, the number should be saved, the value type should be saved as number in the database. If not, we should just leave the value alone. So now I've added this. Now you can see brown sugar has been added. Let me add one more. Let's say we want to add Luke Almond. Email will just be luke@gmail.com, age of 25, salary of, let's say, 1.5, role of a sales. If I click on add now, you can see Luke Almond has been added successfully. All right, so the next thing we need to do now is this edit. We should be able to click on this and then edit. So the edit is right here in our employee table, the button that we have here. Okay, so that is what we're going to do now. So this icon, this button that we have here, we're going to wrap it with the employee modal. So employee modal, close this, then I'll cut this so that I can wrap it, I can wrap button with it. Now we're going to, our data would be item, obviously, then the type would be updates. Okay, so for this now, for this employee modal that is inside the employee table, the type of the form would be updates. Okay, so now if we come here and I click on this, you're going to see that this has changed, the text has changed, and the button as well, the text has changed as well. If I click on cancel, update, right now it is not pre-filling anything, so let us work on that. So let me close this backend, then we'll open our employee model, and then let's check what we have. So right here, this state variable here is to store the input value. Then if the form is to add a new employee, we want to initialize with empty field, right? If not, we should pre-fill the form with existing employee data. All right, so let's see in our update mutation as well. Okay, so I'm just going to reload now, and you should see that. So I did not actually reload, I didn't save, so now it's saved, and you can see right here that it's been pre-filled. You can just edit the details. So let's say I want to change this to Luke Groove. I want this to be capital letter Luke Groove, and then I want to change the age to 26, the department to manager. If I click on updates, you should see Luke Groove, age 26. The role has also been updated. Now the only thing left is to be able to delete, so let's work on that now. So now we want to work on the delete the delete button, right? So this is the button right here, but we need to first, let's come up here, we need to first create a mutation using React query to delete an employee. So I'm going to have const mutation be equals to use mutation from stack React query, open bracket, open your curly braces, press enter. So first we need function that performs the delete request. So we'll have mutation function. It's going to be an asynchronous arrow function. The parameter will be the ID for the details that we want to delete. Then we'll press enter. So first we need to send delete request to the API with the employee ID. So const response will be equal to await fetch open brackets backtick, and then in between this backtick we'll have our dollar sign because we want to have template literals, our backend URL from our application slash dollar sign. We'll pass the ID. Then after the backtick, we'll now open our curly braces. We'll set the method or Ctrl Z method, and the method here is we're using the delete method. We'll add a comma. Then our headers, open curly braces, content type, which is going to be application slash JSON, right? So after this is done now, next thing we need to do is to pass the JSON response. So we're going to have const results will be equal to await response.json open brackets. Now we'll use an if statement to check if the request failed. We're going to throw an error. So we're going to have if not response dot okay, then we'll throw new error open brackets results dot error, and if is successful we should return the successful response data. So we'll just return results. Okay, so after this mutation here, we need to automatically, like if after the mutation, we're also going to display an error message if the mutation fails. So on error, pass error, toast from toast notification dot error, open brackets, error dot message. And then we'll use on success to automatically display a message if the mutation is successful. So here on success, open our curly braces, we'll display a toast notification, toast dot success, open brackets, will display this message, employee details deleted. And also we're going to refresh the employee database by invalidating the cache. So we'll have query client dot invalidate queries open brackets, then we'll open curly braces, we'll pass the query key, open our square bracket, and here we're going to have employee underscore details, which is our query key, right? So we've done this now. Next thing we need to do in the button itself, where we have the delete button, we're going to use an on click. So this is the button right here, the first button, the one in red. So we'll use an on click method to call the mutation function. So here is going to be mutation dot mutate, open our bracket, item dot id. Okay, so now I've deleted one. Let me delete this again. This other one too has been deleted. Okay, so that works well. We're able to delete. Now we need to style the entire application because it is not styled. Okay, so let us work on that styling now. And also, we're not getting any toast notification. So let us fix that. In our main.jsx, we need to introduce toaster from React Hot Toasts. It will have a self-closing tag. And then we'll set the position to be top center. Okay, so now if I click on delete, we should be getting a notification. This is saying employee details deleted. Okay, let's say we want to edit Julie. Let's say I want to change it to Julius 26, salary of 1400, and then let's say the role still remains the same. If I click on updates now, you can see we're getting this message: employee updated successfully. Now let us just restyle this so that it can make a lot of sense. So I'm going to close main.jsx and then I'll open app.jsx, and that is where we're going to be restyling from. Now for this, we'll start with the very first div tag. So for this div tag, we'll have our class name. Minimum height is screen size. Background will be gray, 100. We'll set padding to 6. And then for the second div tag, max width of 7XL, MX auto, and then we'll set space of Y to 8. And then for this div tag here, display would be flex, items, center, justify, between. Then this h1 tag that we have here, text of 2XL, font of semi bold, justify, between. Okay, now this button has been styled. So let's see. So this is what your details should be looking like now. Okay, this is what we updated recently from Julie to Julius. You can see everything is looking perfectly well. So this is what we're going to have at the end of this tutorial. If you watched till the end, please do not forget to subscribe, drop a comment, like and share. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.